The carving knife seemed unusually heavy in my grip as I stood behind the gleaming sterling silver serving station, my gaze fixed on my son Michael, laughing comfortably with his in-laws at their polished mahogany dining table. Through the open pass-through in the kitchen wall, I had a perfect view of him adjusting his cufflinks, a small, nervous habit that had once belonged to his father before he passed away. At the table, his wife Isabel's mother entertained the guests with stories about life at their country club. "You're very fortunate, Isabel," said Mrs. Victoria Ashford, her diamond jewelry scattering prisms of light from the chandelier above. "Michael doesn't come with complicated family baggage. No troublesome in-laws. He's been on his own since he was 16. Such a heartbreaking story. But it does make everything so much simpler, don't you think?" The serving spoon slipped from my hand, clattering loudly against the marble countertop. A few of the catering staff glanced over, but I waved them off, hiding the rapid, pounding rhythm of my heart, like a bird trapped in a cage, desperate to get out. My name is Carmen Santos, and I was standing in the Ashford's kitchen in a black catering uniform, listening to my only child tell an entire room of people that I had been dead for 15 years. "Yes," Michael replied, his voice carrying clearly into the kitchen. "No family ties. My parents died in a car crash when I was 16. I've been completely on my own since then." Every word landed like a blade slipping between my ribs. On his own, I had worked 3 jobs to pay his tuition at Columbia. I had missed my own mother's funeral back in Puerto Rico because he was bedridden with pneumonia in his junior year of high school. I had sold my wedding ring to cover the fees for his law school applications. "Such determination," commented Mr. William Ashford, lifting his wine glass in admiration. "A self-made man. You don't see that much anymore. Most young people these days can't function without family wealth." I almost laughed, sharp and bitter. Michael had leaned on my money right up until he met Isabel 3 years ago, until he discovered that her father owned nearly half of Manhattan's commercial property. Until the day he decided that a Puerto Rican mother who cleaned houses didn't fit the image he wanted to project. "Carmela," whispered the head caterer, using the false name I'd given when I applied for this job 2 weeks earlier. "The turkey's ready." Elite Catering Solutions had been looking for staff to serve at the Ashford's Thanksgiving dinner. When I saw the address, the same one printed on the wedding invitation I'd never received, I knew I had to take the job. I needed to see my son again. I needed to know why he had changed his number, moved without telling me, and, according to his old roommate, started telling people I was dead. I lifted the enormous turkey platter, 25 pounds of perfectly roasted meat that Mrs. Ashford would claim as her own handiwork, despite not stepping foot in the kitchen all day. My hands didn't tremble, even though my chest felt like an earthquake was shaking through it. I'd served countless meals in my life. This was just another one. At least, that's what I told myself. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced in my most professional tone from the dining room doorway, "dinner is served." The room was a masterpiece of understated wealth. Soft cream walls, gold accents, and a table large enough to seat 20, though only 8 were present tonight. The Ashfords sat at the head, Isabel and my son to their right, and 2 other couples I didn't recognize filling the rest of the space. They looked at me the way the wealthy often did with service staff, seeing my role, but not me. I moved around the table, serving each plate with practiced precision. When I reached Michael, I forced my breathing into a steady rhythm. He still wore the cologne I'd given him for Christmas 5 years ago, back when I still existed in his world. "Thank you," he murmured, not looking up, too engaged in his father-in-law's discussion about stock portfolios. I set his plate in front of him and turned to serve Isabel. That's when it happened. As I reached across, my sleeve slid back, revealing a distinct, star-shaped birthmark on my wrist, the same mark Michael bore, the same one my father and grandfather had carried before him. Mrs. Ashford, mid-reach for her wine glass, froze. Her gaze dropped to my wrist, then flicked to Michael's, where his rolled-up sleeves left the identical mark in plain sight. The resemblance was undeniable, a family brand passed down through generations. "Michael," she said slowly, her tone edged with suspicion, like someone who had just solved a riddle they didn't like the answer to. Michael looked down at his own wrist, then followed her eyes to mine. And for the first time in 2 years, our eyes locked. I watched the blood drain from his face, his perfectly rehearsed facade collapsing like wet paper left in a storm. "Mom!" The word slipped from his mouth before he could catch it. Barely above a whisper, but in the heavy quiet of that dining room, it landed like a gunshot. The carving knife in my grip quivered. Not from fear, but from the sheer willpower it took not to unleash every truth I'd been holding back. Not yet. Not until I'd finished what I'd come here to do. "Someone you know, Michael?" William Ashford asked, his tone carrying the authority of man and news being contradicted. Michael's mouth opened, then closed again like a fish pulled from water. I'm Carmen Santos," I said clearly, setting the carving knife down with deliberate care. "Michael's mother. The one who, according to him, died when he was 16. The room erupted in chaos. Victoria's wine glass struck the table, so hard a crack split along its side. Isabel shoved her chair back, her composure breaking for the first time all evening. "Michael," she demanded, "what is she talking about?" "Perhaps," I continued, keeping my voice calm despite the years of anger claw at my throat, "Michael can explain how I managed to watch him graduate from Columbia while 6 feet under. Or how a dead woman co-signed his first apartment lease. Or how a ghost worked 3 jobs to put him through school. You told me you were an orphan." Isabel's voice rose with every word. "You told me you had no family. You told." "He tells people plenty of things." I cut in, pulling the catering cap from my head and letting my hair spill free. The same thick, dark waves he inherited from me. The ones he'd spent years trying to straighten away when he decided half his heritage didn't suit the image he was building. He'd once told me he'd never be ashamed of his roots. He'd once told me I was his hero. He'd once said, I swallowed down the surge of emotion. Well, people change. Michael shoved back from the table, his chair scraping against the polished floor. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," William Asher commanded, his face reddening with fury. "Explain why you've lied to my family for 3 years." "Because you never would have accepted me," Michael snapped, his voice finally breaking with something real. "From the start, you made it clear Isabel should marry someone with the right background, the right family, the right pedigree. How was I supposed to tell you my mother was... A what?" I asked softly. "Say it, Michael. Go on, say what I am." He couldn't look at me. "A housekeeper," he muttered. "A housekeeper who speaks 3 languages. I corrected. 1 with a degree in accounting from the University of Puerto Rico. A degree this country doesn't recognize. A housekeeper who could have been so much more, but gave it all up to invest in her son. Victoria Ashford, who had been silent until now, studied me with sharp, assessing eyes. You raised him alone after your husband died when he was 10? Yes. Every day, every cent, every dream I had went into making sure he could reach his. And this is how he repays you," she said, her voice like ice, "by erasing you for the sake of social climbing." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the other couples at the table, phones in hand, recording the whole scene. By morning, the story would be everywhere about the rising lawyer who killed off his own mother to fit in. Mrs. Santos. Isabel's voice was quiet now, fragile. "He showed me death certificates. Forged," I said plainly. "He's a lawyer. He knows how to make anything look real." Michael slumped back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, I don't." I raised my hand, stopping him cold. "Don't you dare try to apologize now for their benefit. You haven't spoken to me in 2 years. 2 years, Michael. I didn't even know you were married until I saw in the Times." "We're leaving," William Ashford announced, standing abruptly. This is beyond forgiveness." "Daddy, please," Isabel began. "No, we welcomed him under false pretenses. Everything about him is a lie." "Not everything," I said before I could stop myself. "He is an exceptional lawyer. He did graduate summa cum laude. He did build his career through his own effort. Those things are true. Why defend him?" Victoria asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Because I'm his mother, I said, simply, even when he wishes I wasn't. Michael finally looked up at me then, tears streaking his face. "Mom, I'm sorry," he stammered, voice trembling. "Sorry I found out? Or sorry you discarded the woman who sacrificed her entire life for you?" My words landed heavy. He had nothing to say. From my apron, I pulled a thick envelope, the one I'd carried for 2 weeks, waiting for the courage to hand it over. "Your grandmother passed away 6 months ago in Puerto Rico," I said, my voice steady. "She left you her home in San Juan and a letter." I slid the envelope onto the table in front of him. His fingers trembled as he recognized her handwriting. "She never knew you erased her from your story," I continued. "She died believing you were simply too busy with your important new life to visit." I let her believe that, because the truth would have broken her heart. The room was hushed, the only sound Michael's uneven breathing, as tears fell onto the table. My gaze swept over the faces at the table, the people who embodied everything my son thought he wanted. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford. The turkey was flawless. "Isabel, I'm sorry you were lied to. And for the rest of you," my eyes flicked toward the still recording phone, "I hope you got plenty for your gossip reels." I turned toward the door, but paused. "Oh, Michael, those student loans you've been bragging about paying off with your hard work." I said evenly, "I made the final payment last month. $47,000. Consider it my wedding gift, since I wasn't invited to give one in person." "Carmen, Victoria Ashford called as I reached the threshold. Wait, would you like to join us for dinner? As a guest." I looked at her, the woman whose approval my son had valued more than my existence, and saw, to my surprise, a glimmer of respect in her eyes. "No," I replied softly. "I don't share meals with people who are ashamed of me." As I walked through their polished marble foyer, voices erupted behind me. Isabel crying, the Ashfords demanding answers, Michael scrambling to explain the inexplicable. Outside, the catering staff stood by the van, wide-eyed. "Carmela, are you okay?" one asked. "I'm free," I said, and felt the truth of it settle in my chest. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "He doesn't deserve you. If you ever need anything, please call me. Victoria." Attached was a candid photo of me serving at the table, posture proud, the birthmark on my wrist visible like a medal of survival. 2 days later, Michael showed up at my real apartment, not the false address he'd saved in his phone. His face was hollow, his jaw unshaven. "Isabel left me," he said quietly. "The Ashfords are telling everyone. My firm's put me on leave pending an ethics review." I stood in the doorway. I didn't invite him in. I deserve it. All of it, he admitted. His eyes met mine, watery and desperate. "Mom, I erased you for them. I killed the only person who ever truly loved me, because I was afraid they wouldn't accept us." "No, Mojo," I said, voice low. "You were afraid they wouldn't accept you. There is no us anymore." He swallowed hard. "Can we try to rebuild?" I thought of all the years I'd worked myself to exhaustion, the countless moments I've been invisible, the sting of being deemed too embarrassing to exist. Then I remembered the birthmark on his wrist, a perfect match to mine, a tie that could never be severed. "Call me in a year," I said at last. "If you can go 12 months telling the truth about who you are and where you come from, maybe we can talk. I was dead to you for 2 years. 1 year of resurrection is fair." He nodded, knowing he had no right to bargain. He started to walk away. "Michael," I called. He turned, hope flickering. "Your grandmother's house in San Juan." I said, "I'm moving there next month. If you ever decide to remember where you came from, you'll know where to find me." I closed the door on him, on the life I'd built around him, on the woman who'd lived for someone else's dreams. Tomorrow I would start packing for Puerto Rico, for the house where my mother was born, where the Santos birthmark meant pride, not shame. That Thanksgiving night, the carving knife had trembled in my hand, not from fear, but from the strength it took to carve my dignity out of the wreckage of my son's lies. And that dinner would be the last I ever served wearing someone else's uniform. From then on, I would sit only at tables where I was welcomed as myself. Carmen Santos, mother, survivor, and finally, free.